That was quite a journey into the San Andreas Fault. We've now traveled 1.5 miles right into the center line of the fault zone. The San Andreas Fault runs about 700 miles approximately through the continent and 300 miles into the Pacific Ocean. At its narrowest point, it's 200 feet wide. Widest point, it's 3.5 miles wide. At this point here, 2.25 miles wide, and we've got 1.5 miles. We're standing right in the center. To my left, you're looking at uplift from the Pacific Plate, and to my right, the North American Plate. They're literally colliding right under us, creating the uplift that we've journeyed into. And as they rise up and press, and the weathering takes place, water and wind opening up, creating a slot that allows us to walk right up between them and be standing in the center line. So let's go inside and check it out. Okay, now out there we're actually in a pretty safe area. Now welcome to the worst possible spot you could be in. We're literally standing right between these two plates, Pacific, North American, uplift in a slot. And this is continually rising. It's important to understand the plates are colliding at this point, and this uplift is continually happening. The plates literally slide about 1.5 inches, 2 inches a year at the present rate. So every 10 years they're moving almost a foot. And we're sliding this North American plate, sliding up the western part of the coast area here. And as they rise up and push up, and then the erosion takes place, the wind and the weathering, opening up the slot that we're standing in here. You can feel the sides, it feels nice and solid, but listen, pretty hollow. You could see in a major quake we had it right now, we'd be in a very serious trouble here. Up above us are many small rocks, and before we ever felt or heard or saw that earthquake in any form, we'd be showered with small rocks. That tells you it's coming. You don't want to go running out because things could be falling down, so the best thing would be to dive under here. You see, you think this is solid, it's not. It's granite, feldspar, gypsum, and quartz ground for millions of years, compressed together, and you can literally break this right off just like that. And put that on your fireplace now and pretend it's a big, nice, fancy rock. Put your name on it, and then when someone comes in, you turn into the Incredible Hawk. You can turn it to powder in your hands. Fault gouge, and it's just like talcum powder. You would think it would wash away in the flash floods. Not at all. The minute the water touches this, it seals instantly. That's why we have flash floods. You see, the water can't absorb into this soil, rushing down through the arroyo, down to our valley below, giving us the flash floods. But here, it's fault gouge, and we're standing right in the center of it, constantly rising. And because of the pressure of that, these mountains around us are among the fastest rising mountains in the world today. What you're looking at here is a recreation of a Quinta village called Quinta Wet. The Quinta lived in this valley 2,000 and 3,000 years ago. They're the original people of our valley here. They lived in huts like this called quiche. You'll see there's a hole in the top that allows the heat to rise up and draws cool air in, keeping them quite cool in the summer. They had access to many things here in the valley, such as gourds that could be cut open and used to create bowls or water scoops. And you notice we have water flowing right down into the village off to the side here. That's because we're sitting on the fault line, and wherever there's a crack or a fissure, the water rises up and flows down, giving us access to fresh water as well. The water system you see here cascades down through 3 different pools. This upper pool here was your cooking and drinking water. Then right down below me here was your bathtub, and down to the lower area was industrial uses, tanning hides and that type of thing. You notice the wonderful plants that are around you. This greenish bush right here, the mesquite, was a great source of nutrition for the Native Americans. It's called honey mesquite. Tastes just like a Honey Nut Cheerio. Is a great source of protein and used to create their breads. The darker green one you see there is called arrowweed and used to create arrow shafts and spears. So basically everything you see in our desert was alive and edible and the basis of foods and medicines that were used by the Quinta. Another plant of great value to the Quinta was the Washingtonian Folifera. This is the same plant used to make the shell of the quiche that you looked at. The Washingtonian Folifera is the only palm that's native to our valley. And the Folifera comes from the fibers you see hanging. This is a great source of material for them, such as your sewing threads. You could easily come in here and pull some of these off of a frond, and you've got your sewing threads. And when you eventually come up with a large group of them, you now have a whole handful of thread. So you have fine threads, but if you want to turn this into something more substantial, such as a rope to build things or basket, you twist them towards you and away from you, and very quickly you will come up with a rope. Simply by twisting the fibers and causing them to bind into each other, you can create a rope. And now you've got the beginning of hats, baskets, sandals, whatever you want to make from this, simply using the fibers in the palm. You can imagine if I can do this in 30 seconds. The tribe were working on this and the children were gathering fibers and the women working on this here as a project. By the end of the day, they'd have yards and yards and yards of really cool rope, just like that, using the fibers from the plants. Again, everything is used by the Quia. They understood the use of every plant in this valley. They were a remarkable group of people, fascinating to what they knew about all the plants we have here. We drive by thinking, oh, it's nothing but scrub brush. Wrong. It's a wonderful, wonderful array of medicinal plants, foods, and fibers to be used for many, many purposes. Welcome to Fault Line, California. Our motto here is, you ain't looking for nothing, you'll find it here. This is our recreation of what we figure a mine camp might have looked like in the 1850s. And we use this to educate the children about the history of our valley, the early pioneers, and the gold mining that took place in this area as well. And it's also a great venue for events. So what you have here is several different features in what the mine camp might have been like. We have a mine that we tour down through and show you the gold miners and how they did hard rock mining in the area. Most people don't realize that surrounding our valley here was a great deal of mining. We all think Northern California, 1849, the gold rush. And yes, that's what brought everybody westward, but we forget that there was a gold rush down here. On the other side of our valley in 1857 by Julian was the Eagle Mine. And there was gold discovered at that time, and you can still tour that mine. On the other side of Holcomb Valley is the Lucky Baldwin Mine. Gold was discovered there in 1860. By the end of the 1860s, there were over 2,800 miners in that area, missed becoming the county seat by only 2 votes. From then, coming up through the 1870s, down through these mountains here, over 3,000 mining claims. What we call Joshua Tree National Park today at one time had nearly 300 operating mines. So what we've put in place here, we have the Bradshaw stage and telegraph. We actually have a telegraph that operates in there, and we have the charts that show you how they learned to use the Morse code. You see, when the railroad connected, that was the first time we were able to speak coast to coast. The first words ever spoken or sent over the wire of lightning speed communication was, "What hath God wrought?" This was an amazing thing at its time, just like the computers are today. Off to the opposite side over here we have a homestead. The Homestead Act was put into law by Abraham Lincoln. He signed that document. It was designed to get you folks to come and settle the Wild West. For $10 and a $2 agent fee, you got 160 acres of land. Wouldn't you love to have that today? But you had to build a structure, notice an 8x10. You had to live in it 5 years and improve the land every year before it became yours. So that's what brought the people westward, and it was designed to make you settle the West, not just come here and buy the land and wait for someone else to do it. So it's a great part of our history, because most of our original founding families that came out here with the Homestead Act, and that brought them westward, and that's where we grew from there.